All right, so I think we can get started now. Good morning again, and welcome to this webinar. Look beyond swim lane, build smart lanes in Swift-Kanban. My name is Nitin, and I'm the product owner for Swift-Kanban. And let me just take you through a quick agenda of what we're going to cover in this webinar. We'll start with a quick introduction, and we'll start with the webinar. And so, firstly, what we're going to do is we'll start with a couple of looking at a couple of Kanban board patterns, how you can go about building those Kanban boards, and then eventually we'll arrive at how you can, where exactly do you feel the need for swim lanes, and then which is where in Swift-Kanban you can even go beyond the swim lanes and build more intelligent smart lanes using the smart lane feature available in Swift-Kanban. We'll also get into a quick live demo and show you how you can use Swift-Kanban to build a couple of complex board patterns, and then we'll open it up for any question and answers. All right, so let's just quickly begin. I think so one of the first thing which before we begin, we're recording this webinar. So once you're done, you will see this webinar. We'll share the link of the recorded webinar event. You can use it. If you're tweeting in the meantime live while the webinar is going on, you can use Swift-Kanban as a hashtag. If you have any questions in between the webinar or later, just put it in the Q&A box, and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So the first thing which we will start is we'll kind of quickly look at a couple of Kanban board patterns and understand how you can go about building it. Now, this is obviously one of the first thing when you start with Kanban, you start to build which is the first principle itself, that visualize your workflow. You start wondering how do you set up your whole Kanban board. Now, in a very simplistic way, when typically you start, you might start off with a simple vertical lanes, each of which will represent your workflow, your specific workflow or value stream, as you may call, through which you will pass on the work item, any work which you do, and take it to a closure. Now, for example, in this particular very simplistic workflow, you have 5 vertical lanes. The very first one represents your input queue, which is these are the things which are ready to be worked upon. You can start with analysis. You can develop, and once you have developed, you put it to a validate queue, and you deploy. This is a very simple workflow. Typically, teams who start with Kanban, end up building something similar to this, at least to emulate how they are currently working on, and in a sequential way, and probably start off. Now, as you start to adapt and embrace Kanban more, typically you can then slowly introduce a pull system within the same set of board. So the next snapshot shows. So typically all you've done is split develop lane into 2 vertical sub lanes. Now, as you analyze the defect, you put it to you pull it and start working on it. As you are done, you move it to a done queue, which indicates that these are the things which are ready to be worked upon by the next queue. And as soon as the next queue has a bandwidth, they can pull the work from develop and start working. Now, this is a kind of simple way to enable the move from a push-based system to a pull-based system, and have a least resistance within the team. This is also like sample from Swift-Kanban. So this is also one pattern which most of the teams start using it. Now you can, as you move and mature in the team, you can enable pull in all of these workflows than one particular step. Now, once you're familiar with this could be one pattern, but some of those also in a very simple in a simple environment, you may also build a Kanban board which could typically represent any task at hand, for let's say this particular week, and what are you going to do next week, and how many you've already completed and deployed. So this could kind of represent a simple scheduling which you can do right on the Kanban board. Now, this could be as complex as you may want, or you could keep it very simple depending upon your own specific workflow and the team you're working with. Now, in a certain just give me a minute. Okay. Now this is obviously a simple scheduling, but you can even go complex and build more sublanes within each. So, for example, instead of this week, you can split into 5 days so that you exactly know from Monday to Friday how did you worked on. So let me take a pause and probably go to the application and show you how you can build a simple workflow like that. All right. So I have a sample here. This is Swift-Kanban application, as you will be familiar. Uh, I have created a simple project called Simple Scheduling. What I'm going to do is I will turn this simple scheduling into a little complex scheduling, and all I have to do is go to a modify process. Now, what I could see right now is only four lanes, four vertical lanes. This week has been split into multiple lanes. I can simply add, put on the tip and add more lanes, and I could just click on this to rename, and I would say that I will build a more complex scheduling and represent each day of the week for my Kanban board. Now, as you see, obviously, if WIP limits are something which doesn't make much sense in this particular example, you can turn them off by putting -1 for the WIP limit column. All right, let me just quickly save this and show it to you. Now, if you see, what we've done is we've built, we've modified this simple scheduling into a little more granular, task. So you can start what each team would do on a daily basis and put it up. As they get done, they can probably move it to a done queue or simply archive it. Anything which is up in the pipeline for next week and gets spilled over can simply be moved to next week, and it will get done. So this kind of simply gives you a idea that in a lot of scenarios where you're working with a very small team, or even you're tracking simply your own work, you can schedule using the Swift-Kanban board and model your specific value stream. Now let me go back. Now we're going to go to a little more complex pattern, which you would typically see, where you have multiple workflows. Now, when you have multiple workflows, typically you may, in this particular example, what you see, for example, a simple scheduling, all you're seeing there is a simple workflow. There is only a single workflow or single value stream through which all the type of card may go. Now, a lot of times, if you work with different types of work, for example, a user story or a defect, each of these work item may take up a different workflow altogether. Now, if you want to model that, it goes a little complex, and so you can use and Swift-Kanban provides features to even build something like this. So you could start with an input queue, have different types of work items built in, and against each type of work you can define their own specific value stream. So for example, in this queue, all the input queue shows that all your defects, stories, or issues, everything will get lined up in the input queue. And as you have a capacity, or as the bug fixing team or story development team have the capacity, you can pull in the card and move it to a particular value stream. Now, bugs can go directly in this value stream, stories can go into this value stream, issues can go in a different value stream. You will also see that you will be able to model each of these value stream in a different way, since there are different workflows. So for example, a bug fixing workflow has a fix, in progress, and done stages, validate and deploy. It does not have estimation sort of skill because you're quickly fixing a bug. Whereas if you're doing user stories, you have a different value stream altogether, where you are estimating first, elaborating, writing user story, or putting together specs. Then you go through development, then you validate and deploy. at the same time, for issues, it is still a fairly simple workflow. So let me just go back to the board and show you how we can you can build something like this in Swift-Kanban. Right. So what I'm going to do is I will start off probably, and let me just zoom in a bit. Let me create a new, use that same board example and probably show you how you can tweak it a bit. So for example, this is how this board shows, and probably let me just walk you through and show you how you can build a board something like this. So what we'll start with, we'll quickly create a new project in Swift-Kanban and say it will take me through a default value stream. It is just simple value stream right now. Let's just modify this and just get rid of some of these lanes and till we want to. So we can keep the ready queue same. Probably remove all the other queues, and let's say this one we can say, and we can simply split this horizontally, and let's say we call this stories, we call this issues. Now for each of these two lanes we can now define their own value stream. So I can split into two. So typically what we allow you is you can split it vertically, you can split it horizontally, which I shown. So once I have a card type lane, I have split it horizontally to show stories and issues, and then I've split it vertically to indicate each of the workflows. Now once you have split, it is only two lanes, but you can also add more lanes to either right or left. Now we can define a value stream for user stories. So let's say it starts with estimation process. Now you will also notice that what we allow you to do in Swift-Kanban is we let you define the lane type. So you can build intelligence into the lanes and indicate, is it an in progress lane, which means is it a working lane where the work will get tracked, or is it a complete lane which indicates that it is done. Either the cards will get parked here and add to the wait time, or once you've archived, it will move and set into the archive. So in progress will represent the working time. So all the metrics which we compute, overall lead time or overall average work time, will be based on the sum of time spent by a card in each of the working lanes, whereas the complete will indicate the wait time. Once we have, let's say, quickly complete this this workflow. It's a very simple workflow, but as you would see that this is a different workflow than the issue workflow, for which we can keep it pretty simple. Acknowledge, analyze, and resolve probably. So I can just add one more lane on the right and say resolve. Now this is a very simplistic workflow. Once we save, we have our board ready. I can zoom in a bit and show you. Now this is how you can build multiple workflows within the same Kanban board. However, this is still using a simple concept of swim lanes. So there are two horizontal lanes going across, and there's one vertical lane you can build. However, this is still a bit simplistic, but also it requires a lot of manual understanding of how you work with a card. So for example, if I add a new card, for example, I add a new defect, I can select to move it into a ready lane, but and I move it, so there is nothing which stops me from putting a defect and taking it to a value stream lane. Now this is typically what many of the tools you've seen, they allow you to build all these workflow models, but how individual user will use the card across what value stream will still be pretty much at the discretion of the user. So at many a time you might by mistake take it through a different workflow and may not realize. That is where a smart lane, which is available in Swift-Kanban, can help you tremendously. So let me just go there and show you how this entire thing we can build using the smart lane feature available in Swift-Kanban. So let me just go and add a new project. So we are showing you quickly, what will be the difference between a simple lane as the board which I have shown versus the smart lane feature which is available in Swift-Kanban. For example, I'm just going to the modify process. This is a simple process which is by default available. Now, instead of us going through each lane and manually saying issue, defect, and user story, and still may not be tying it at the later time, we can simply go to smart lane settings and say I want to enable the smart lane, and say I want to define the smart lane based on card types. If I do that and save it, it will take up all the type of card which I may have defined out here. For example, let me just unselect some of them. So for example, simple keep defect, issues, and user story. I have 3 different types of card which I work with. I can define colors for each and say, I will show defect in a red color, issues in a gray color, stories in a yellow color, and then I can go back. Just do a refresh. Okay. Now I have 3 different swim lanes, which are truly different swim lanes, unlike a vertical or a horizontal split, which we did, which is also you will see probably available in most of the tools. But I have 3 different swim lanes available now, and I can model an entirely different workflow for each of these swim lanes. For example, let's say I have already developed, validate. I can split this into 2 and say in progress. Now all the patterns which I describe of enabling a pull or splitting it vertically, or simple scheduling, all that you can incorporate within each of these swim lanes. So let me say done. Now each of these workflows are different, and you can simply save it. Now if at all you would want to copy the same workflow, whatever you've built for defect, into issues as well, then there is a feature available to just copy the entire value stream from defect and just bring it into issues. And then for user stories, you can have something completely different. So for example, for user stories, I can delete it a bit and for example call this analysis. Now, as you see, it's simply a matter of typing it, and it will let you quickly define all the lanes which you want to do. And so typically, even a complex workflow board can be modeled in Swift-Kanban in just a matter of a couple of minutes. Right now, one more thing which you can do different. Let me just quickly save this. Is many times you don't want to set work in progress limits, let's say at a particular sub workflow stage. In that case, you can set all these workflow stages as -1, so there's no limit. For example, let me just set analysis to -1. So we are saying there is no WIP limit applicable at this level, but and I can go to user stories and simply edit this, and I say there is a WIP limit available at the overall user story level. So for example, at no point we should allow more than 5 user stories to go, because I only have 2 developers, and some of them will be into bug fixing, some will be in issue resolution, and thereby you can set a limit at the user story level. So you can pretty much set split your bandwidth across different work items, for example defects, issues, and story, and accordingly set their work in progress limits. So let me just go back and show you that once you have built this, what exactly will the smart lane do? Now these are all simple lanes on horizontal and vertical swim lane, but the whole intelligence is built in, that when you go and add a new card, and let's say that card is of type defects, it is only going to allow you to add this within any of the defect lanes. For example, when I add new defect and let's say save it, this will come and sit into the defect swim lane and not issue or a user story swim lane. So even if I try to move it, it is not going to let me do it, because for as per the definition which you have set, a defect is supposed to follow the defect swim lane and not an issue swim lane. So accordingly, you can so there's a whole intelligence built into these lanes, which will let you work as you move around. Now let's take one more example. Now let's say that you want to define swim lanes based on class of service, right? So similarly, when you go to a particular project, I've already built a smart lane project out here, and all I've done is I went to the smart lane settings and I said I want to define my swim lanes based on class of service. Now class of service, as you probably will be aware, is a very key concept in Kanban, which lets you define, which is equivalent to a prioritization, which lets you define whether a particular card is to be expedited, it is on a critical path, or it has a fixed delivery date, so it has to go on a particular specific date, or is it a standard class or intangible class. Now you can also define all of these four class of service values or more within Swift-Kanban, based on the specific configuration you may have. Now let me show you what it will do out here. So let's just quickly go to modify process and tweak this a bit. Firstly, I can select my card types. So I will define that I have only 3 types of card which I work with. I can then go to expedite and say, when we do expedite, I don't want it to go through, let's say, a heavy process. I want something to quickly get developed, move to QA, and get approved. So there is a very simple flow which I want this to follow. Whereas when we have to go to a specific date, I might have a little more complex thing around it. And for example, let me split this as well. Now I can also split let's say input lane and say this is due this week, all the cards with a fixed date class of service due this week versus next week. So you can simply put it up. Now this is what I've shown is simply how you define class of service based smart lanes, and let's go back and see what the system will do to the intelligence built in. Now when you add a new card now, let's say a defect, let's say something is not working. Now as soon as you select a class of service and say what, this has to be expedited because it is something which is very critical to the business. The moment you select expedite, the lane selection will let you choose the expedite swim lane and the ready column within it. Whereas let's say if I select a fixed delivery date, it will let me select whether I want to move it to this week or I'm going to move it to the next week. Now let's say we choose this. Now what has happened is the defect has you have not selected where the defect should come up, but this is automatically understood that this particular defect has a class of service value as fixed delivery date, and hence it has to go within this fixed delivery date swim lane, right? So this is where the smart lane intelligence comes up, that or the views of the card which are being added. So accordingly it will wax. Now let's assume that in the course of your work, one of the fixed delivery date cards needs to be expedited because you don't want to go through this complicated workflow and say what, I'm changing the class of service for this. So all you need to do is, if you move this in this lane, this will in turn go and change the class of service as well. So I have not changed and edited the card. I have simply moved this from this lane to this lane, and you will see that the class of service value has changed automatically. So class of service is now expedite. So the whole, if you work with smart lane, the intelligence it provides is that as you're moving cards to the lane, you also don't need to change the attribute, or as you're changing the attribute, it will change the value stream which it has to go through, and you don't have to worry about that. So it will automatically come up and sit in the right queue where it should belong to. Okay. Now this is one sample which I explained. Similarly, you can build swim lane based on priority. You can build based on class of service, and work with it. Let me show you one of the uh, some of the samples which I have built. So this is what I explained: a multiple workflow scenario where you have each of these swim lane defined for different card type. The difference between this versus using a smart lane while building your board is that you will not have a scenario where a bug uh, you know in a particular lane is following a value stream which was supposed to be for stories. Now, in a manual board or many of the tools which you use do, you will not be able to control it. It is completely at your personal discretion. If you want to put a defect into a user story value stream, nothing is going to stop you. But if you would like that, the system automatically, intelligently puts the right card into the right lane, then you can use the smart lane features available in the Swift-Kanban product. Right. This is a smart lane by card type which I explained to you. I'm going to show you one more example. We showed class of service. Now let's assume that you want to build a smart lane for a particular team member. So you want to have a dedicated lane for each of your team members. So all you got to do is I can go back to the application and show you. All you have to do is build smart lanes similar to what I explained. All you're going to do is go to the modify process, smart lane settings, and select build smart lanes based on team members. And once you select this, you can set it up, and it will automatically pull out all the team members which you have in your project. So if you just don't know, let me recap. So typically for each project in Swift-Kanban, you can define a set of team members who are going to work in that particular project. So you can build your own team. Each project can have a different team who's going to work on the board. And once you have set up this team and build a smart lane using team member, it will have a dedicated lane for each of these team members. So let's see how the smart lane will interpret it. So for example, if I have, let's say, a story, and I would say that my team member 1 is working on that particular story. All right. So immediately it'll select the swim lane for the team member 1, and when I submit, it will go and sit into the team member 1 swim lane. Now, if I want to reassign the cards, so typically, in the due course, if a team member is not available and you want to balance the capacity and say, team member 1 is loaded, why don't you assign it to team member 2? All you got to do is change this to a different team member, and the team member has changed. So now it is with the team member called product owner and not team member 1. So typically, you can even build smart lanes based on team member. If you have a scenario where you want dedicated lanes for each of your team members, and you are constantly shifting priorities between the team, you're trying to load the capacities for each team member. You can build a swim lane like this. So what it will also help you is, for example, if you want to build a work in progress limit for each team member, you will be able to do that. So for example, you can say overall a product owner should not have more than 2 cards across all the work which he's doing. So you have set a WIP limit of 2 for a product owner. You can probably remove the WIP limit for all the smaller processes, child process. You can remove for all of these. And let's say if you do that, and if I have 2 more cards for the product owner, and just adding third card, the moment you have a third card, it will immediately highlight that you have loaded this particular guy beyond its capacity, which you've set a work in progress limit of 2, and now it has 3 limits. So it will immediately send notification to the team members or everyone in the team, as well as show you right on the board that there is a WIP limit violation. So this is also pretty handy when you have you want to do resource leveling right on the board. You want to define a limit to which the card the team member should pick up. Each team member should have the card on a particular lane. It could be overall or it could be within a particular lane. So for example, if I had a team member who is only available half time, I can always set his WIP, work in progress limit to the capacity which he can take up the cards. So this is also one configuration which you can do in Swift-Kanban using the SmartLane features. Now let's assume that you have some of this. You want to set up your own team, and want to do a completely custom workflow which has nothing to do with SmartLane, and you want to group a couple of team members. So in that case, you can completely build a SmartLane, a custom swim lane feature which is available. So let me just show you. If at all you want multiple swim lanes, but they do not fit into any of these attributes which are available, priority, class of service, size. In that case, you can choose to define your swim lanes based on any custom labels which you want to put. So for example, many a time you want to group cards in a sequence. For example, I want to say this as product team, and I have another team which I call a platform team. So I can add another swim lane, and again I can shift, do horizontal splits. I can do vertical splits, and define my entire lane. And now I can now set up a WIP limit at at each team level. I mean, I can build as many as custom swim lane. Let's say a team 3. So I have 3 teams, and I have defined workflow for each of these teams. So I can even build swim lanes, just like that. So team A, team B, team C, and each team can have a different workflow. So this is also kind of a multiple board. So if you have different functions, within different feature teams who we are working on the product, so for team A, team B, team C, or teams based on a skill set, or teams based on a department, you can also set up multiple swim lanes for each of these teams. And it's as good as building multiple projects within the same board. So building multiple boards within the same boards. Now using this, you will be able to see what each team is doing, and there are multiple features to expand, collapse the workflow, and focus on which team is doing what. And you don't have to create multiple boards in the application. You can view all all your teams right there in one single board. So this is also how you can go about creating it. Now, so far what I've shown you. Let me just quickly do a quick recap and show you what all you can do. So just to get familiar, all the icons which are available. So each let you either do a horizontal split of the lane. For example, I can split this into 2, or it gives you a option to do a vertical split. So I can, typically a vertical split can, make it a doing done, or introduce a pull system within the lanes, or I can even add a sibling lane, to the left of this particular lane or to the right of the particular lane, delete this lane, or set certain information. Using the eye icon click, you can set the name of the lane. You can define the type of the lane, whether it is a working or a waiting, and you can define WIP at any of these levels. So you can set WIP at any of these levels, and to model your specific value stream. And once you've done this, if this basic Kanban board modeling does not suffice, or you have you want to build more intelligence into it, that is where you can enable smart lanes, build smart lanes based on any of the attributes If you do that, it will kind of show you it will as you move the cars from one lane to other lane, it will enable intelligence which has been built into the lane, the whole smart lanes. That is how we call this as a smart lane. Or you define your own custom swim lanes based on the grouping which you would like to do. All right. So that is all in the product. Let me just take you back to the screenshots and show you. So what we've seen is you can define smart lanes by car types, class of service, team members, or build your own custom swim lanes uh, and visualize your workflow. Now, one of the things, the only thing I want to keep at this level before I take up questions is we provide you a huge set of features. This is one of the most comprehensive board modeling capability which you may find in any other product, and ultimately it will be your own specific value stream mapping or how you build your board is what is going to determine how you can smoothly can work. So typically you can keep your board very simple, but as you grow in the team or you want to try more advanced patterns, you can enable this in Swift-Kanban. All right. So I've shown you the live demo. Are there any questions, any scenario which you want to throw, which you would like me to model in this demo? If that is so, I can take up that question before we wind up the webinar. You can type in your questions in the Q&A box, and I'll take up these questions and answer. All right. So one of the questions which I've got is, how do we, model multiple, so are there more attributes using which you can do? If you have a custom attribute, right now you can't select a custom attribute, but that is something we are going to add in the future releases. So right now you can build smart lanes based on any of these attributes which are available. Otherwise, you use your own custom label to model your something. Any other question? I have a question. While setting up WIP numbers, is it possible to set weightages? No, weightages. No, as of now we can't do it. But would you mind elaborating the scenario? What exactly are you trying to model when you say weightages? Are you saying that you want to do a percentage distribution between between multiple swim lanes, or how do you? So typically WIP limit is more of of the limit that you want to put stop on multiple work being in progress uh, than any weightage number. Can you elaborate on that question? All right. So you were saying that okay. So the question I have is let's say if we want to define a, a limit of 3, then on issues, then different types of issues could have their own separate numbers. Now you can do so definitely. So one of the things which you can do right now, we don't support. What we support is you can set up a whole swim lane based on priority. Now if you do that, you can always split and say critical, there will be max, if 5 critical issues or 3 trivial trivial defects, and but it will take up all defects and issues right at the same level. So if you say critical, you can always say that if there are 10 criticals, that each critical will compose of user story defects and issues, but no subgrouping. But yeah, definitely, I mean that is something we can build a hierarchy. We can look at building a hierarchy within these smart lane WIP limit settings. Sure, but yeah, I mean that is one way to model is you can define by priority, and if you define your swim lane by priority, for each value of priority you can set a WIP limit, which will be kind of a equivalent to the split you're looking for. Did I answer your question? Any other questions? Right. If there are any questions, you can type in into the Q&A box, and we can take it up. If you have any specific scenario which you want me to model in this webinar, we can definitely do that as well.
There is a question from Ankur. The question says, can we set the WIP limit based on the efforts involved and not on the limits on the card?
No. So right now, WIP limit setting is on the card numbers, but definitely, I mean, we've also got requests from one more customer about WIP limit based on size or based on the estimates. Sure. So that is something we can definitely look at in the roadmap. Definitely. Right now, all we are doing is in terms of the card count. Okay. But it's a valid request, definitely. Any other question? All right. So before we move on, I just quickly wanted to give you a couple of pointers you can follow. So if you go into the application and click on the help link, you will see our help blog. So that has a lot of resources available for you to refer. And obviously there are a couple of Kanban board pattern 10 examples of Kanban board and which are also available if you want to try it out. And definitely, if you have any ideas, like what you gave right now, you can go click on the feedback link, and there's a whole community portal, and definitely put in your suggestions. We are taking up all the feature requests based on the voting done by all the users, and that is how we are picking up the highly ranked features and planning up in the new releases. So definitely, if you have some of these suggestions, I would definitely urge you to go ahead and add this in our queue into the suggestion portal, and we'll definitely take it up. Right. All right. I think all the questions are over. I thank you for your time. If you have anything else, definitely you can let me know. So there's one more question from someone: how much does this software cost? So if you go to our website, Swiftkanban.com, there's a whole pricing which is available for different teams. The pricing right now is is available right here in this card. This whole website is also kind of designed in a way you would see work with the Kanban board. So you can look at the pricing link, and it will give you an idea. Otherwise, you can drop us an email at sales@swiftkanban.com, and we'll revert back. I have other questions before we move on. Do you have an analytics about average duration of the work? We do have. So we have various metrics available. So as I was saying that based on the lane which you said, whether it is a working lane or a waiting lane, you get overall cycle time metric. Work time is what what you're asking is the average time spent on a particular card. In fact, let me show you a different example since we are at it. Just give me a second. I'm just going to show you some of the metrics which are available before we wind this webinar. So I have this project. I'm just going to go to the reports. So one is obviously the cumulative flow diagram, which is telling you across each lane how many cards got worked upon. There are average lead time metrics, which you can select. So this is telling you overall is your cycle time, the time it takes for a card to move from the first lane on the board till the card is archived. How is it shaping up? A work time is basically showing you the cumulative sum of time spent on each of the working lane. It kind of excludes the waiting time, which is included in the cycle and lead times, as well as average wait time of how much time a particular card was waiting in various lanes before it got worked upon. So all these metrics are inbuilt. You can filter all the metrics based on, look at it in terms of days, weeks, or daily view, weekly view. You can select the filter based on the type of card. So for example, you can only see how much is the wait time for a story versus a defect. You can also filter by priority. A couple of other things which we have recently introduced is a whole control chart. So you can look at the same graph and use, for example, let me show you that example. You can build it control chart and select a duration. So that is going to give you how it will compute mean UCL and LCL, and show you that the mean cycle time for your particular project is 42 days, and how many cards are above let's say the upper limit. So for example, this particular card has a special variation, and it has taken almost 101 days to get resolved, versus the mean time of 42 days. So you can click on this particular card, go through the descriptions or comments which have been put to get an entire history of why this particular card took so much of time. So you can get do a lot of these analysis right here. One of the other thing which we also do is it's a very unique graph. It gives you a histogram. This is more of a SLA, so it will give you a quick view and say that 45% of all your cards took time between 1 to 32 days. 41% took something between 32 to 63 days. Only 9% were between 63 to 95 days, and 5% even took something beyond 95% days. So this will give you a complete split of your cycle time or wait time. So you can then figure out which of these cards are taking more time, and what is the special cause causing these variations, and take corrective actions. All right. Any other questions? Right. So someone is asking, are there any demo logins? Definitely, you can go and sign up. There's a free 30-day trial. You can enable for yourself, use the tool, and definitely give us a feedback of what you like, what you don't like, and we'll be in touch with you. All right. So I'm going to end this webinar now, unless someone has any more questions. Thanks for your time. Definitely let us know if there will be any other features which you want to see in Swift-Kanban. For example, if you want to have more understanding on the metrics, we can definitely schedule a specific webinar covering all the metrics and reports available in Swift-Kanban. Let us know. You will get a feedback form. We'll send you a feedback form apart from the recording of this webinar. So do fill in that feedback and let us know what else would you like us to cover. Right. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.